Hello everyone. Welcome to Shark MP200 Technical Training. In this part of the video, we will look at the MP200 installation. So, let's get started. The MP200 high-density metering system measures and reports on energy usage from 8 three-phase circuits or 24 single-phase circuits. Consolidate many metering points in a compact, highly rugged multi-circuit design that saves mounting space, installation time, and equipment costs. The MP200 in Enclosure lets you expand your switchgear capability and/or easily meter circuits without expensive and time-consuming redesign. Simply mount the enclosure in any convenient location, next to your switchgear or on a wall, and you are ready to go, with no downtime. This is an ideal solution for a retrofit when there is no metering compartment available. The unit comes standard with an NEMA 1 rated enclosure and is factory wired with the metering system installed. Standard safety equipment includes voltage fuses and shorting blocks for current transformers. The enclosure can be ordered with either the MP200Y three-phase circuit configuration or the MP200S single-phase circuit configuration and comes standard with either a 3" by 5" or 5" by 7" touchscreen display. BACnet or LawnWorks protocol is available as an add-on to the existing standard Modbus capability. Now, talking about the handling of the product. Every effort is made to ensure that the equipment arrives undamaged and ready to be installed. Packing is designed to protect internal components as well as the enclosure. Do not remove protective packing until you are ready to install the equipment. When you receive the equipment, you should inspect the shipping container for any obvious signs of rough handling and/or external damage that occurred during transportation. Record any external and internal damage for reporting to the transportation carrier and EIG. All claims should be as specific as possible and include general order numbers. You will find a plastic bag of instruction booklets in the shipping container. Store these documents in a safe place. While handling the product, it is important to follow the security precautions, which are clearly mentioned in the product packaging. You can notice the message which says warning. All safety codes, safety standards, and/or regulations must be strictly observed in the installation, operation, and maintenance of this device. Hazardous voltages that can cause death or severe personal injury are present inside enclosure. Follow proper installation, operation, and maintenance procedures to avoid these voltages. Completely read and understand the material presented in this document before attempting installation, operation, or application of the equipment. In addition, only qualified persons should be permitted to perform any work associated with the equipment. Any wiring instructions presented in this document must be followed precisely. Failure to do so could cause permanent equipment damage. All possible contingencies that may arise during installation, operation, or maintenance, and all details and variations of this equipment do not purport to be covered by these instructions. If further information is desired by purchaser regarding a particular installation, operation, or maintenance of equipment, contact an Electro Industries Gauge Tech representative. Now, coming to the storage of products. Although it has been well packaged, this equipment should not be stored outdoors. If the equipment is to be stored indoors for any period of time, it should be stored with its protective packaging in place. Refer to the MP200 Metering System User Manual, available on the EIG's website. The temperature rating for enclosure storage is -20 to +60 degrees Celsius or -4 to +140 degrees Fahrenheit. Talking about compliance, the compliance document UL/co-listed UL508A, file number E3581 includes all the compliance-related details. Now, let's go ahead and look at the installation of Shark MP200. The most important part of the installation process is to choose a mounting location that offers a flat, rigid mounting surface capable of supporting the weight of the equipment. The unit weighs 48.5 pounds, 22 kilograms maximum. Mount the equipment in a suitable environment. This enclosure is designed for NEMA rated environments and is manufactured of painted steel. Check to make certain that there are no pipes, wires, or other mounting hazards in the immediate mounting area that could create a problem. Also, make sure you have enough clearance around the enclosure to run wiring to it safely. EIG recommends at least 2 feet of clearance around the enclosure. Carefully remove all packing material from the unit. Even though an equipment inspection was made when the equipment was received, make another careful inspection of the enclosure and the devices inside as packing material is removed. Be especially alert for distorted metal, loose wires, or damaged components. This is important because wiring can come loose in shipping and could cause a short circuit or voltage to be on the wrong terminal. An important warning that needs to be taken into consideration is extreme care shall be taken when mounting the enclosure and making wire entry holes to prevent metal chips, filings, and other contaminants from entering the enclosure, which may damage the equipment and create a hazardous condition. Now, coming to the first step of the installation, which is unpacking of MP200 in enclosure. The enclosure components are shown in the image. MP200 current inputs 24 of them, CD shorting blocks 8 of them, CD connections, voltage inputs and 6 fuses, earth ground on inside of enclosure, ground wire on enclosure door, cable assembly, display cables, LCD display. If ordered, optional add-on protocol Protocom or Protocom LAN. Second step of installation is drilling the wiring holes. Here, cut the holes you need in the bottom of the enclosure for the power, CD, and communications wiring. See the image for the allowable location. The image shows the area in the bottom of the enclosure where wiring holes can be cut. 1 inch or 25.40 millimeters from the front of the enclosure, 1.5 inch or 38.10 millimeters from the right side of the enclosure, 1.5 inch or 38.10 millimeters from the back of the enclosure, and 3.75 inch or 95.25 millimeters from the left side of the enclosure. There are numerous methods for making wire entry holes in the enclosure, but it is imperative that no loose material generated during the process remains in the enclosure. During installation and cutting the wire holes, all equipment mounted inside or on the enclosure shall be protected from loose material. No matter what procedure is used, the installer shall verify that the hole cutting process will not damage any of the wiring or components installed inside or on the enclosure. Let's go ahead and look at the 2 recommended procedures for cutting the wire entry holes. The first procedure is use a C-frame punch to cut the wire entry holes. This type of punch does not require a pilot hole. A typical C-frame punch is shown here. Use regular punch. Place a magnet inside the enclosure where the pilot hole is to be cut and completely cover the area with masking tape or other very sticky tape. Drill the pilot hole from the outside and do not let the drill pass more than 1 by 4 inch into the enclosure. Remove the tape, magnet, and cuttings and punch the hole. The second procedure is, after wiring and before energizing, vacuum the inside of the enclosure to make sure that it is free of foreign material. If a vacuum is not available, use an alternate method to clean the inside of the enclosure. Do not use compressed air or pressurized gas to clean the inside of the enclosure, as this may force cuttings into areas that cannot be seen, creating a hazardous condition. An important thing to note here is that all wire entry into the enclosure shall be accomplished with the use of recognized fittings or strain reliefs. Bare holes shall not be used. In addition, the panel can be removed to facilitate drilling of wiring holes. The procedure to remove and reinstall the panel will be discussed further. If it will make it easier to drill the wiring holes, you may remove the panel. If the MP200 enclosure is equipped with a Protocom or Protocom LAN add-on protocol unit, remove all connections from it. Remove all connections from the LCD display. Disconnect the green ground wires from the door. Open the cable clamps on the door and remove the cable assembly. Remove the green ground wires on the lower left side of the enclosure. Remove the 4 nuts, 1 in each corner of the panel. Carefully remove the panel from the enclosure. Drill the wiring holes by following the instructions which were covered earlier. You can then reinstall the panel as per the following instructions. Place the panel on the 4 mounting studs in the enclosure and install and tighten a nut on each of the studs. Connect the green ground wires to the ground stud on the bottom left of the enclosure. Insert the cable assembly into the cable clamps on the door. Connect the 2 green ground wires to the stud on the door. Attach the connections to the LCD display. If the MP200 enclosure is equipped with a Protocom or Protocom LAN, attach all connections to it. Now, we continue to the next step of the installation, which is mount the enclosure. Determine the enclosure mounting location where there are no obstacles and the exterior wiring can be easily accomplished. Install as per the NEC or local code requirements. Refer to the following images for the enclosure dimensions. Mark the location of the 4 mounting points on the surface where the enclosure will reside. Prepare the mounting points using attachment means appropriate for the surface supporting the enclosure. Put 2 fastener screws or bolts in the top 2 mounting location. The fasteners shall have a head diameter of no greater than 0.65 inch and a maximum body diameter of 0.25 inch. Install upper mounting screws. Leave a 3 by 8 inch gap between the screw head and the mounting surface. Lift the enclosure and hang it from the top 2 bolts. Install lower mounting screws from the inside of the cabinet. Loosely tighten. If necessary, shim between the mounting surface and the enclosure to compensate for any irregularities. Tighten the lower 2 fasteners. Fold back the CD wiring labels in the upper right and left corners of the enclosure and tighten the upper 2 mounting fasteners. The next step is the installation of display. Note that, as of fall 2021, the enclosure is shipped with the display already mounted. In case the display was not mounted when you received the enclosure, then you will only need this procedure. The contents of the display box are shown here. Display, rear module, power supply not needed for enclosure. See important message displayed. The RS485 serial cable 10 feet not needed for enclosure. See important message as shown. The mounting hardware constitutes anti-rotation T, socket wrench, installation nut, attached to the back of the display. Follow the instructions mentioned here to mount the display in the enclosure front cover. Firstly, there are 5 parts to the display as installed in the MP200 in enclosure. You can see the drawing here, which shows the display components for mounting in enclosure. Display module and touch screen. Panel with cutout. Display installation nut. Anti-rotation T. Rear module, containing the electronics to run the display. Now, press the anti-rotation T into the display module in the hole provided. After this, insert the display module with the anti-rotation T attached into the cutout, aligning the anti-rotation T so that it passes through the small hole in the panel. Place the display installation nut on the portion of the display passing through the panel and finger tighten it. Using the socket wrench supplied, tighten the display installation nut with a torque between 1.2 and 1 Nm 10.6 to 17.7 inch-pound. Carefully insert the rear module with the yellow button to the top of the enclosure and push the rear module until it locks into place. When it is in place, you will hear a click. Connect the cable to the rear module. The final step of installation is locking the enclosure. The enclosure has been fitted with means for securing the door, so it cannot be opened or tampered with. A key lock is provided along with 2 keys. The first step is to lock the enclosure by putting the key in the lock and turning it clockwise. The second step is to remove the key and store it in a safe place. When you want to open the enclosure, put the key in the lock and turn it counterclockwise. Repeat the first step to relock the enclosure. So, that's it for this video.